Please comment on the video with your ideas and like it. Furthermore, please subscribe to get our newest stories. That night changed the way I saw everything, my career, my choices, and especially the man I had worked with for over a decade. But some moments happen when you least expect them, like a perfectly timed symphony, with each note striking a deep chord within you. The evening began as a typical one. The company's annual gala had just concluded, and the city lights shimmered through the expansive glass windows of the rooftop venue. The laughter of coworkers still echoed in my ears as I stepped outside and breathed in the cool night air, glad to be away from the noise. My heels hurt a little from standing and smiling for so long, and I turned to see him. James Carter has been my boss for 12 years. He consistently presents himself in a well-groomed manner, exuding the confidence of a person who has built something from the foundation. At 61, he was as calm and collected as ever, but something about his face that night felt different. "Just getting some air," I said with a small smile. "That was quite a party," he said, stepping next to me. He had his hands in his pockets, and his usual air of authority was softened by the glow of the streetlights. "To be honest, I don't really enjoy these events," I chuckled. "Funny you host them every year. That's just business," he said, tilting his head slightly toward me. "You, on the other hand, seem to enjoy yourself." I shrugged. "I guess I've learned to play the heart," and he let out a low laugh. For a moment we stood in comfortable silence. The city buzzed, but for a moment, it was just us away from the office. "Then I'm not ready to go home yet," he said. "Would you like to join me for a drink?" I wasn't sure what to say. We often talked outside of work, during late-night calls or strategy meetings that went late into the night. But the conversation felt different. Something in his tone made my heart race. I finally said, "Why not?" and he led me down the street away from the brightly lit downtown towers and into a quieter part of the city. He took me to a small, cozy lounge with soft jazz playing in the background. It felt like a place that had been around for a long time. We sat in a corner, away from the noise and chaos of the outside world. Booth untied his tie, a gesture I had never witnessed before. He looked at me, really looked at me, as if he saw me in a new way. "You've been with the company for a long time," he said, swirling the amber liquid around in his glass. 12 years, I nodded and asked, "Have you ever thought about what life might have been like if you had taken a different path?" His question caught me off guard. "Were you asking if I regret the choices I've made?" He shook his head. "Not regret, just curiosity. Do you ever think about the roads you didn't take?" I slowly breathed out. "I think we all do at some point, but I've always believed that every decision, every turn, leads us exactly where we're meant to be." He smiled. "That's a wise way of looking at things." We talked about life for the first time in years, not about work, not about deadlines or quarterly reports. He told me about his early years and the sacrifices he had to make to build the company. I told him about my dreams and the moments that shaped me. Time blurred as one drink turned into 2, then 3, and somewhere between laughing and reminiscing, the air between us changed. He reached across the table and tentatively touched the back of my hand. I didn't pull away, and there was a moment when everything hung in the balance. Then, quietly, he said, "I've always admired you beyond just your work. You possess a presence that grounds the world amidst chaos." I swallowed. He was my boss, but I had respected him for years and valued him more than I let on. But as I sat there in that dimly lit lounge, I wasn't thinking about work or professionalism. I was reflecting on the way he regarded me, as if he were seeing a woman he had not truly noticed before. "I should probably go home," I finally said, though my voice lacked conviction. He looked at me for a long moment and then nodded. "Let me walk you." The streets were quieter now, and the city was getting ready for late night. Rhythm thanked me for listening as we lingered at the entrance to my building. "Thank you for tonight," I smiled. "I could say the same thing to you." I hesitated, unsure if I should lean in more. It was the kind of moment where the world narrows down to 2 people, and the past and future fade away, leaving only the present. But before anything else could happen, I held my breath and whispered, "Good night, James." I stepped inside before I could lose myself fully. As the door closed behind me, I pressed my back against it, my heart racing because something had changed between us, and I knew in my heart that the present was just the start. The next morning, I woke up earlier than usual, my mind still tangled up with what had happened the night before, the way James had looked at me, the warmth of his hand against mine, and the unspoken words that hung between us. I had only seen him as my boss for years, a man of authority, respect, and distance, but now I couldn't stop thinking about him as James, the man who had let down his guard, spoken with quiet vulnerability, and looked at me in a way that made my heart race. As I poured my morning coffee, I shook my head to clear my mind. This was silly. Nothing had happened, and nothing could happen. But as I walked into the office, I felt a strange lingering tension, like the air itself had changed. I caught a glimpse of him through the glass of his office. While he was engaged in a call, his eyes briefly glanced up and met mine. There was a pause, a hesitation, and then he gave me the tiniest smile that only I would notice. I could feel it like a quiet storm. The day passed quickly with meetings and emails, but my mind continued to wander. It didn't help that James seemed more present than usual, stopping abruptly. Helped that James seemed more present than normal, stopping by my desk more often than necessary and staring at me for just a second too long. By late afternoon, I was restless and needed to get some fresh air or do something to clear my mind. I stepped outside onto the small office terrace and breathed in the cool fall air. The city was busy below, with faraway honks and chatter. I was thinking so hard that I didn't hear the door open behind me. "You haven't been around me." Jane's voice was cool, but there was a twitch in it. I turned around and forced a light laugh to avoid you. "That's a bit dramatic." He stepped closer with his hands in his pockets. That same look on his face that I couldn't read? I sighed and rubbed my temples. James was different last night. He finished for me. I know I looked up at him and saw the man I had worked with for years, but he seemed strange, or maybe I was seeing him clearly for the first time. "We can't do this," I said quietly, but the words felt hollow as I spoke them. He looked at me for a long time and then let out a sigh. "I know what you're thinking, that this is dangerous, that it changes things." "It does change things." I said it strongly. "James, you're my boss. There are rules and expectations." "I'm not concerned about rules," he said, cutting me off. I stared at him. This wasn't the calm, collected man I had seen before. I knew it was someone else because he wasn't thinking about work, power, or duty for once. He was thinking about me. "You're making this too complicated," he said in a softer voice. "Last night, we weren't boss and employee. We were just two people." "I think I know we both felt something," I said. "That doesn't mean it's right," he said, tilting his head. I wanted to speak, but the truth was heavy between us. I felt something I hadn't felt in a long time. He took a step closer, and his voice was barely above a whisper. "Tell me I'm wrong, and I'll drop it. I'll forget everything that happened last night." I wanted to say those words to pull away and pretend things could go back to how they were, but I didn't because I wasn't sure I wanted to. The air between us cracked. As he reached out and touched my wrist, I felt an invisible thread pulling us closer. My breath caught as he did it. It was a question, not a demand, and for the first time in years, I didn't want to think I didn't pull away. James's fingers just touched the inside of my wrist, but I felt it all over. The warmth of his touch made my heart race, and it has done so for years. It had been normal for me to do what people my age and in my career expected of me. I had built my life around reason and predictability. But as James looked at me as if I were something new and different, I felt the walls shift. He was waiting for any sign that I wanted this as much as he did, and I did. I took a slow breath. James said, "I don't know where this car is going." I agreed with a small smile. "But that doesn't mean we have to run away from it." There was a breeze on the terrace and I shivered. He noticed right away, taking off his suit jacket and putting it over my shoulders. His smell was a little spicy, and I felt warm and safe. "Come on," he said, pointing to the office door. "Let's go," he said, his voice light but firm. I looked back inside through the glass doors. The office was still buzzing with end-of-day energy, with people going about their business. If I went back in, I knew exactly how the night would go. I would gather my things, go home, make dinner, and sit alone with my thoughts, acting like nothing had changed. But something had, and for the first time in a long time, I didn't want to miss a chance. "Please pass me, okay?" I sent my voice more steadily than I thought I would. "Let's go." We ended up in a dimly lit, quiet restaurant a few blocks away. The music was low, and the waiters spoke quietly. When James ordered a bottle of wine, the first sip warmed my throat and made me feel calmer. I set my drink down and asked, "What are we doing here?" He gave me that same unreadable look he always had at work, but tonight there was something else in his eyes. He swirled his wine and watched the deep red liquid catch the light. "I just want to be with you where we don't have to pretend," he said. "Pretend that last night didn't mean anything." The words landed between us heavy and unmovable. I opened my mouth to speak, but this time I didn't want to be cautious or consider every word before it was spoken. As I let out a breath, a look of relief or something deeper appeared on his face. We conversed for hours, focusing on our relationship rather than our work or responsibilities, and I shared with him things I hadn't spoken in years, such as how I had prioritized my career for so long and how I had convinced myself that love, passion, and connection were reserved for those with unlimited time. James listened carefully, and when I finally stopped talking, he reached across the table and gently brushed my fingers. "You're not alone," he said, and I believed him. When we left the restaurant, the city was quieter than usual. The streets were lit up with soft amber streetlights, and the sound of traffic filled the silence between us. We walked for a while, not quite ready to say goodbye yet. At a crossing, he stopped and turned to me. He said in a soft voice, "I don't want to rush this, but I also don't want to act like this doesn't matter." My heart beat fast. As the city swirled around us, I let out a breathy laugh. We stood there for a moment, but it felt like we were the only two people in the world. Then, without planning or overthinking, I stepped closer to James. His eyes searched mine, and I finally let myself feel the kiss. It was slow and tentative, like the first few notes of a song that neither of us knew the melody to yet. His hand cradled the side of my face, and his touch was careful and reverent. When we finally pulled away, his forehead rested lightly against mine. "This changes everything, doesn't it?" I whispered. "It does, but maybe that's not so bad." I closed my eyes and let the moment's warmth sink in. Maybe, just maybe, he was right. I woke up the next morning feeling excited, nervous, and uncertain. James's touch on my lips and the way he gazed at me, as if I were something worth waiting for, remained palpable. However, as the morning sun streamed through my bedroom window, I had to confront the reality that I remained his employee and he remained my boss, marking a boundary that was irreversible. My phone rang on the nightstand. "James, good morning, and I hope you don't feel awful about what you did." As I typed back, "Me, not you," a small smile crept across my face. When James asked, "Can I see you later?" I hesitated, not because I didn't want to, but because I wasn't sure what later meant for us. I took a deep breath and said, "Yes, but we need to talk first." That night, we met at a quiet park just outside the city, away from the noise and the prying eyes of the office. James was already there, leaning against a bench with his hands in his pockets. He looked up as I approached, his expression softer than I had ever seen. "Hey," I repeated, sitting next to him. We just sat there for a moment, watching the golden light of the setting sun filter through the trees. I asked James, "Where does the story go from here?" He exhaled as if he had been waiting for me to ask. "I don't have all the answers," I said. "But I know what I don't want is I don't want last night to be something we pretend never happened." I slowly nodded, and he turned to face me. "Let's not make this about rules or expectations. Let's make it about us," he said. "Whatever that looks like," I swallowed, and he laughed softly. "I won't let this situation affect your career. You've worked too hard for that. If we need to have a conversation about boundaries at the office, we will," I said. "But I don't want to lose whatever this is just because of logistics." I had been avoiding taking risks and feeling things because I thought I was too old to feel them, but James was standing next to me, ready to help me figure it out. I reached out and grabbed his hand. "Okay," I said in a steady voice. "Let's see where this goes." His smile showed relief, and as he pulled me in for a slow, lingering kiss, I knew I was in for a treat. As the sun went down, I understood something. The present wasn't just a night that would go down in history, it was a new start.